As we all heard in the last day or so, we're talking about investments in PNG, we're talking about wealth, we're talking about attracting investments into the country. And, this morning we had the gentleman from AWS Cloud talking about cloud, and, it seems to be the buzz at the moment. So what I'm going to do is go through a few slides and sort of talk to you about what are some of the key things we need to look at before we start considering some of these things. So, as you can see, cybercrime has become a considerable impact into organisations right across the globe today. You can see there the figures are growing every day. The cyber attacks are increasing. There's one cyber attack every day, every 20 seconds now. It used to be every 39, now it's every 20 seconds. What's happening with our friends in the cybercrime industry? Just to give you an idea, every 20 or every 15 seconds, they're making in excess of $20 million through organisations who are not prepared to spend the time and the effort to understand the cybersecurity infrastructure. Rather than handing it over to someone else to take care of, you need to consider these things. Some of the biggest data breaches in Australia I've put there. You can see the spender, the expenditure on softwares, the amount of money organisations spend in trying to secure their data, the level of consulting that they do. They try and secure the organisation, but a lot of external factors and internal factors are some of the key issues. We all seem to think about external, but we forget about our internal threats. There's a large percentage of compromise incurs through internal threats. So why is it a concern in 2022? As you can see there, some interesting figures for you. 22% of the organisations had a case where their business operations had a ransomware attack. Now, this has also happened in PNG. There are organisations in PNG that have suffered this ransomware, but they've kept it under the hat. So those organisations need to look at why it occurred and what they can do in the future to avoid such occurrence. 81% of their business experienced a cyber attack. 66 have suffered a data breach. And in Australia, it's mandatory now to report a data breach. If you don't, then there's a huge penalty. Not only that, we have the APRA, the financial regulator, ASIC, who has now taken the responsibility of the IT department and have said to people like myself, who's the CEO of a large organisation, people that are in the board, it is now your responsibility to ensure that your organisation's cybersecurity is secure. And it has become now the board's responsibility to ensure that all the right implementations are made. Whether you're putting your data into cloud or you're giving it to a third party, it's you that's going to be accountable for it in Australia at this stage. This hasn't happened in PNG, but you can be rest assured, as we develop and grow, it will, these policies will be in place in PNG as well. So what are some of the key drivers? Why is it still happening today? We talk about it every day. You hear it in the news every day. You probably see me writing articles in your national press. Why is it still happening today? It's quite simple. You have to understand how this works. There's a group of people that identify vulnerabilities, that develop softwares, and then there's another group of people that actually utilize this information and use it against you, all right? And this is something that organisations need to understand. Who is your cybersecurity partner? Who are you working with? It's critical that you have that information. So what are some of the reasons for the exceptional increase in cyber crimes? Ignorance and oversight is one of the key factors that I find. A large percentage of organisations in the past would simply put a RFP out saying that, dear companies, we'd like to have this and this done in our organisation, please tender for your work. What they don't realise is who are these people that they are giving the information to. So I could be somebody who's based and build a profile and say to you, I'd like to tender for your work. Can you please tell me a bit about your infrastructure? What are your servers? Where do you hold your data? Who are the people that look after your system? That is the sort of information gathering I'm doing. And I could be a cyber criminal. I could be a hacker. Getting that information is critical and easy for me to attack organisations. So when you are out there letting out your RFPs, putting your job employment for IT people, be very careful the level of information you give out to these people, because that could be pretty disastrous, and only give information to people that you can trust and you are aware of them. So cybersecurity these days has become more of a trust. I spend majority of my time today not behind the desk, but out on the road seeing the board, talking to the APRA department, talking to ASIC. Why is that? Because they want to build the trust with the company that they're dealing with, and it starts at the top. It's no longer a salesperson that comes in and does the talking and the negotiation when it comes to cybersecurity. They want to know who is the person that's going to head the company. Can I trust this organisation? Then they start dealing with organisations and they form a relationship, because this is about trust. It's not something that you change every day. It's about trusting the person that's supporting you. It's key. The other thing that you must understand is there's a lack of cybersecurity awareness and training. I can give you some examples, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but there are organisations in PNG, some of them in very senior organisations, and I don't want to name these organisations, but they still use their personal emails for business. Now that's a big no-no. It should be stopped immediately. So these are some of the things, and it's purely because of lack of training and awareness. So why is it becoming a board priority now? Like I've said, in Australia, around the globe, in the US, it's the responsibility of the board and the executive. It's their responsibility to ensure that they take care of this. Simply because you can see the increase of using cloud facilities, people are moving into e-commerce, more and more organisations are passing it on to someone else, a third party, a vendor, who we call these days, all right? Increase of third-party supplier risks occur when you are going to give your data out to somebody else. You need to understand the risk that's involved to your organisation, and are you prepared to take that risk should you be compromised? And if you are going to be compromised, or your third party is going to be compromised, what is the disaster recovery plan that you have in your organisation? You need to have those sort of things implemented. And compliance and regulation is key. If you're in the finance industry, you need to be PCI compliant. You need to have those regulations. You need to be ISO compliant. People will ask you before they deal with you in any organisation. In Australia, if you want to supply to any organisation, you must provide them with evidence of cybersecurity. You must have your latest audit cybersecurity report. Your insurance company will not insure you unless until you have a current cybersecurity report done by an external auditor, not internally, external auditor. Landscape's changed now. It's a strategic risk to all organisations now. Regulations and compliance requirements for business expansion globally. We talked about yesterday where we had some gentlemen from, I think, number one, Super. We had steamships. We had some other gentlemen. So people they're looking for investors, stakeholders. Now, before anyone invests into your country or within your business, you need to ensure that when an investor comes into your organisation, they have the assurance that any investment or any data they provide you with is secure. Because data today is gold. That's what we look for. That's what cyber criminals are looking for. They're looking for data. It's critical information. Data gives me a lot of information about an organization, what their plans are, what their future is with their investors, where do they want to go. So it's that sort of information that cyber criminals are looking for, because that's what they want. So what are some of the checklists for some of these organizations that want to attract investors? So first things they ask is, when I go out to an APRA audit, when I audit the executive and the board, the first things I ask, one of the things I ask them is, where's the latest cybersecurity board report that you have registered, and I want to see evidence of that. So when you have your board meetings today, this is the first thing you need to do, is talk about cybersecurity. I know finance is key in any business, but let me tell you all today that if your cybersecurity foundation is not strong, you will not have a business tomorrow. There is no business for you. It's as simple as that. Do you have, some of the things is, look at the last point there. Do you have a recent grey box pen test? You need to understand these sort of things. You need to know, you need to ask these questions. People will be asking you this sort of information prior to them investing in your organization. Here's a few ones that people ask all the time is there any sort of monitoring or compliance in place within your business that allows me to see who's extracting your data and where's it going to? Where's your data stored? Who is it stored with? Is it with somebody who has got all the compliance regulations in place? Because data centers, cloud data centers, they're not cheap to build. They're very expensive items to build. So you need to ensure that whoever you provide your data or you're willing to give your information to, they have all these compliances in place for you. Not only that, you must have your policies and procedures in place as well that you must provide to these cloud providers to ensure that they are working with your policies and procedures, not theirs, how you want it to relate to your business. That's key. So some of the principles I've highlighted there in red is what I'd like you all to take note of. What is the value of your data? Who has access to your data? You need to have that very clear in your organization. Who are the people that you want to have access to your data? You don't want your sales manager to have access to data that's not relevant to him. You don't want your admin assistant to have data that's not relevant. Where is your data located? Do you know where it is located? Is it where they say it is located? Who is protecting your data? Who are the people that are behind there that are looking after your data? Once the salesperson disappears, where is it stored? Who are the key people? What are their qualifications? How is your data protected? These are the questions you need to ask. Some of the key principles to understand about cyber risk. Many organizations are interconnected with partners, suppliers, and customers, all right? So you have a whole heap of information and a lot of parties where you do transactions, you do payments, you do invoice payments, so you need to understand that. Cybersecurity is an enterprise-wide risk management issue that needs to be addressed from strategic, cross-departmental, and economic perspective. It's no longer just one person's responsibility, it's right across the organization. And it starts at the top. Understand the legal and the regulatory compliances that you must comply with. If you are going to be in PNG and you want to attract customers from Singapore, or you need to attract customers from New Zealand or Australia, you need to understand what are the compliances I must meet before I can get those investors to come into my country. So they are key for you to understand. Cybersecurity risk management should be discussed regularly in every board meeting. It's a critical thing. All right, company directors should have a good understanding of cyber risk to their business. They must understand, okay, what is it? How's it going to have an impact on my business should the information get compromised? What are the risk factors there? And then conduct a periodic cybersecurity maturity assessment. That's critical. In Australia, it's mandatory. If you're in the finance industry, or you're in super fund industry, or you're in the medical industry, you need to get it tested every quarter. We check their systems quarterly to ensure that they are compliant. There's no issues. Patching has been done. One of the key things we find is that there's so many updates, patches, vulnerabilities coming out every day. You need to patch your systems. You need to ensure that they're fixed. These I've highlighted in red is because these actually are key things that you all should take note of. If you are in the executive position today, you need to understand this. And you should know that directors should ensure that management is getting involved in cybersecurity programs and allocate budgets with skilled manpower. If you don't have the skill level, cybersecurity is the best way for me to describe it to you is if you've got a heart attack, you can't go to your GP and get him to operate on you, right? You need to go to a specialist. So you need to ensure that whoever's in your organisation that deals with cybersecurity has that specialist experience. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and money. Don't do it. Board members should identify all cyber risks to their business and determine plans to mitigate and identify which risks the business is willing to accept and which risks they are happy to transfer to their vendors. Identify key risk assets for business that cannot be compromised and implement control policies and procedures with regular monitoring on these assets. They are critical to understand. So for all the board members, these are the questions that you should consider when you are talking to your staff. Which is the most critical assets in my organisation? Do you think there's adequate protection? What should it take to feel confident that these assets are protected? Are we confident? Do we know they are protected? Do we know where they are? How effectively are you detecting the cyber attacks on your network? Do you know how many times your network has been attacked? Do you have some sort of information that tells you what's happening? These are important things. If you don't ask those key questions, your business could be impacted with a major cyber attack which you're not aware of. Questions for board members to need asked daily. There's some very simple questions there. And some of the things that I say is, have you implemented a secure VPN? That's one thing that is key. A bit about us. We're an internationally accredited organisation. We're Q assured. We work with a lot of government, banks, large organisations. Our teams, over 20 years of experience with all the highly certifications that we have. Datec PNG is our partner. We've had a long-term relationship with Datec, and they're a good one to have for us because they understand the PNG business, and we are able to work with the PNG clients and help them in understanding what their requirements are. Some of the service portfolios we provide, which is all there for you to have a look at. And that's all I have for you all today. Thank you.